I'm Joe Zekas, and Allison Soltown is here. We're from YoChicago, and we're meeting with Pat FitzGerald from FitzGerald Associates. We're in Pat's offices. Pat, every time I think about Pat FitzGerald, I think you're a stealth architect. You've had a major impact on residential development in the city, and hardly anybody knows who you are. The name isn't out there beyond the developer community very much. Why is that?
Probably because I'm a relatively private person. I don't seek popularity. I have focused on trying to do the work and in building an office that does good work and provides good services to developer clientele. And I think it's because our clientele are almost 100% developers, and so it frankly isn't germane whether the public at large knows who we are, as long as the developers know. They're the people who hire the architects. So we have gone to some pains to make sure we're known in the development community, but have never really sought a lot of popularity. I enjoy a certain amount of anonymity. I can walk into neighborhood meetings and things, and it's perhaps an advantage that nobody knows who I am.
Walked around, and you've got an enormous shop here these days. Lots of overhead.
About 50 people.
About 50 people. Architects are the proverbial canary in the mine. When the wind is blowing, you're the first one to feel it.
Well,
which way is the wind blowing?
We're busy. I've been through 4 recognized recessions and a few dips in between personally, and you're right, we are sort of the point of the bullet in the sense that we're dealing in very long lead time product and ideas, and so we're usually the first to feel it when things slow down. But at the moment, I think we're still busy, and I think there's a number of reasons for that. One, I like to think we're busy because we're good at what we do, and people recognize that, and so we're getting a good percentage of the work that is still out there. But also, I think that there are other factors, which is that, despite all the gloom and doom in the press about mortgage rates and home prices being down, if you look at it historically, there are very few periods over the last several decades in Chicago when real estate values actually declined. And even those dips turned out to be relatively short-lived. If you look at what it costs to build new housing today, it's easily 20% more than 2 years ago. So I think the public at large kind of...
stop you there, Pat. 20% more? What's accounted for that sharp an increase?
We're seeing construction cost increases, or did see. I would say it's leveled a bit now, but I think we saw over the last several years that construction costs were escalating at about 1% a month. There have been periods in my career when this has happened in the past. In many cases, those cost increases were driven by external factors, particularly labor increases and things like that. This one is a little bit different to me in that I think a core component of the recent price increases has been increasing cost of materials. There's a lot of reasons for that. Construction materials are needed in Iraq and in other places in the world, and in repairing hurricane damage in the South and so forth, so there's competition for the materials. Secondly, though, there's international competition for materials, because if you've traveled abroad or you've seen pictures of how many tower cranes are standing in Dubai and in Shanghai and in places like that, you realize that we're no longer the sole or the major consumers of a lot of building products. We compete in a global marketplace for these things now, and given all the demand, prices have simply escalated. In some cases, the supply is limited.
How does that sort of dynamic play out in the residential market in Chicago? Developers' profit margins are squeezed, but also prices go up and just demand for...
Well, in the short run, developers' profits are squeezed, and some squeezed to the point where I think there are probably a number of projects out there that have been announced that will simply not be built, or that will be at best delayed for some period of time until there's more absorption in the marketplace and prices start to increase again. Because if you're working off a 2-year-old pro forma and didn't project the kind of increases we've seen, which I don't think anybody really totally anticipated, then you may find you have $100 million project that's not going to produce any profit, in which case is it really worth the risk of going forward? There's no margins for error. So lenders have become a lot more cautious about how much cash they're going to advance on projects where there is no margin for error.